further ado, I would like to introduce our DA, Singas. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for the privilege of your time. And I too would like to join in congratulating and commending those officers for the incredible work that they do every day. And I thank this body for acknowledging them and recognizing the sacrifice they make every day to make sure that our families are safe in Nassau County. I must make clear at the outset that I am not here as a Democrat or as a Republican. I am here as your district attorney. I am here as the newly elected, independent Chief Law Enforcement Officer of this county. There is no such thing as partisan crime. There is no such thing as partisan corruption. I have never investigated a Democrat or Republican. I investigate and prosecute people who break the law. It simply does not matter to me which party's member betrayed the public's trust for personal gain. It is ultimately irrelevant. Let me be clear. Members of both major political parties have been convicted of crimes related to the public trust. The most visible recent example was when former Assembly Speaker and former Senate Majority Leader fell together, albeit in separate ways. The latter of the pair rocked this county, implicating the highest levels of our government and leaving us to wonder how terms of a multi-million-dollar contract were negotiated in hushed tones at a private funeral rather than in this chamber or in public documents. In government, power shifts. The party in control today may not be in control tomorrow. Therefore, none of my suggestions have ever been partisan or short-sighted. Indeed, the government of this county will go on far longer than any one party. And in making these recommendations, I accordingly think of the indefinite term, not the definite one. There has indeed been some progress with Nassau's procurement and contracting systems that must be acknowledged. I called for an independent panel to be formed. One was commissioned and made recommendations. I called for the universalization of screening protocols and vendor disclosure requirements, and those vendor disclosure requirements have been broadened. Executive orders and legislative actions have produced higher bars and lower thresholds. All of this progress is certainly to be commended. And I do, of course, thank those in government who have coupled words with action. But there is more work to be done to ensure that taxpayer dollars are protected. I am here to make sure that this work continues and to offer my counsel as I have offered it and given it in the past. As I said to open this dialogue, I asked to speak here today because I am the newly and independently elected Chief Law Enforcement Officer of this county. My office is a constitutional one, with powers further enumerated by state statute. I represent the people of the state of New York, and my district of service is Nassau County. Prior to my election, I served for 24 years as an assistant district attorney. 15 of those years in Queens, 9 in Nassau, 3 as chief assistant, and 1 as acting district attorney. I have overseen tens of thousands of investigations and prosecutions into virtually every type of crime, as well as overseen a multitude of crime prevention initiatives, community outreach programs, and legislative initiatives relative to the criminal justice system. Accordingly, I would hope and will ask that this body consider my advice on criminal justice issues just as you would listen to a doctor about the severity of an illness or an engineer about the stability of a bridge. The advice that I have rendered and will now elaborate further upon is based upon that experience, duty, and independence. A district attorney who seeks only to punish rather than to prevent crime has no place in the 21st century. Indeed, my office has formulated and will continue to formulate innovative crime prevention strategies against heroin, gangs, burglaries, and yes, public corruption. Whether violent crime or white-collar crime, there is no abdication of responsibility for a comprehensive prevention effort. And according to a February poll, it seems that 93% of our public feels that there is corruption in government, and we must devise a strategy to combat it. I am here to answer that clear call, and I'm asking you to put aside partisanship and to address the disturbing fact that Nassau's public has little confidence in the proper administration of its government. In short, government corruption is an area of potential criminality. I am the district attorney. I have a strong and vested interest in administrative and technological reforms that will harden our government spending processes against corruptive influences and fraud. Last year I commissioned, then issued a special report on the county's contracting processes, encapsulating my recommendations and best practices for system-wide reform and improvement. One such recommendation in the July report was the formation of an independent panel to institute reforms. Subsequently, in August of 2015, County Executive Edward Mangano commissioned such a panel, appointing prominent members with business, government, and academic experience. In order to aid this panel in the early stages of its review, and upon its request for guidance and input, my office submitted an issue brief, which served to supplement our original report. A copy of this issue brief was also provided to this body. The issuance of these reports did not end the matter, however. Indeed, over the course of our process review, my office identified several matters worthy of long-term evaluation and investigation. This criminal aspect of my office's review will continue, inasmuch as my office will review and investigate any suspected criminality within this county. In this way, our endeavor is indefinite. As has been demonstrated time and time again, schemes to defraud and corrupt are not unraveled quickly, carelessly, or effortlessly. Indeed, 7 years passed between the inception of Nassau's BPA scandal to the initiation of the criminal case, prosecuted jointly by the District Attorney's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Just as much time passed between inception and conviction in the Newcastle redevelopment project scandal, also prosecuted by my office. The 2015 indictment and ultimate conviction of Dean Skelos and his son in connection with the Nassau County ABTEC contract was based upon conduct going back 3 years. These investigations and prosecutions are onerous. They are time-consuming. They are massive. And regrettably, they have become routine. More regrettably still, beside the taxpayer money that pours into the investigation and prosecution, there was the initial taxpayer investment or investments that were corrupted in the first place. While my role as district attorney is to investigate and prosecute violations of law, I feel that the best possible result for Nassau County is the elimination of corruptive influence. It is with that very tenet in mind that I submitted various recommendations for reform, so that the citizens of Nassau County neither have their taxes wasted or their trust abused. This is a problem that will not be solved only with arrests and prosecutions. The highest ranking member of the state legislature from Nassau County was just convicted in connection with a massive procurement scandal reaching the highest levels of Nassau County government, with the loudest volume of publicity. Everyone in this chamber is aware of this prosecution. If such a case were insufficient to commit this body to reform, then it is clear to me that this is a problem that indeed will never be solved only with arrests and prosecutions. And we need comprehensive, best practice solutions. The BPA scandal was exposed by this very body, asking questions and holding hearings. A dozen or so years later, a new administration, a new unsolicited proposal, a repetition of history. However, on the Abtec scandal, there has not been a hearing. Imagine where we will be as a county in another dozen years. Imagine it, or take the opportunity now to control it. I have written it and I say it again. Nassau County needs an independent, dedicated, and staffed Inspector General's office, equipped with a comprehensive vendor, contract, and public official database. Today, after an effort to save money and resources, the jobs of Commissioner of Investigations and County Attorney, two responsibilities separated in our county charter, have been effectively folded into one position. This is from a passage in my July report. I quote, "The two positions are fundamentally incompatible. While the Commissioner of Investigations is charged with being an independent auditor to identify, investigate, and address malfeasance by county government employees, a substantial part of the county attorney's charter is to defend the county's activities and county's employees." And this passage was from the czar panel's subsequent report to the county, and I quote, "We understand that the county has a designated Commissioner of Investigations. However, we are advised that at present this is a role performed by the county attorney. We are recommending that a separate, independent individual oversee the internal audit function." I want to highlight and emphasize even that nothing I now say should reflect as a blemish against the present county attorney's professionalism. Indeed, the county attorney's function to defend county practices has included my office as a county department. The present county attorney was not even the individual upon whom this arrangement was originally thrust. It was an inherited situation. This has nothing to do with the individual, but everything to do with the system. A system that, pursuant to state statute and local law, this legislature has the exclusive power to change. To illustrate the paradox in a very practical sense, when my office issues a subpoena in connection with a criminal investigation for county departmental records, it is the county attorney's office that accepts service of process and represents the interests of the subpoenaed official or department. This is not a bizarre arrangement. It is anticipated. However, it belies the import of the inherent or perceivable conflict. One cannot wholeheartedly assist with an internal investigation when one is tasked at the same time by statute and charter with potentially defending the subject. To me, this is as fundamental a precept as a separation of prosecution, defense, and judiciary roles in the criminal justice system, and as fundamental as the separation of the executive, legislative, and judiciary branches of government. It is clear to me and the czar panel that we need an independent, sustained, devoted, and insulated central auditor of the procurement and contracting processes. Setting aside the conflicting roles and focusing purely on the charter responsibilities of the Commissioner of Investigations, Section 206 currently provides that the Commissioner of Investigations shall have power to make examinations as he or she may deem to be for the best interest of the county, of the accounts, methods, and activities of each department, institution, office, or agency of the county, and of the towns and special districts. This is a huge responsibility that requires considerable funding. I must point out something vis-a-vis New York City. New York City is centralized. One police department, one fire department, one department of education, one mayor, and one department of investigations that supervises an entire slab of inspectors general for each department. Though my city colleagues might disagree, New York City is also comparatively well funded. Nassau, apart from county government, contains 3 townships, 2 cities, 25 law enforcement entities, 56 school districts, 64 villages, 71 fire departments, and dozens of special districts. Government oversight here is imminently more difficult due to the lack of centralization. Nassau, unlike the city, is also under the seemingly perpetual oversight of a financial control board. I note that each governmental entity has its own procurement policies, and there is evidence that issues of procurement are very widespread. So far this year, the New York State Comptroller has released 2 audits relating to procurement practices of districts in Nassau County. The Comptroller's audit of the Westbury Water District, released this past January, made the following findings regarding purchase orders. In a statistical poll, it was found that purchase orders were not issued in 86% of cases. 89% of professional service contracts were awarded without any competition. Competitive quotes were not obtained on 63% of public work contracts. This is a special district, and thus by charter, under the purview of the Commissioner of Investigations. Just how much time can that department currently devote to remedying this situation? In February, the New York State Comptroller released an audit of the Mineola School District with the findings that 1, the district did not have written guidelines or procedures for seeking competition for purchases not subject to competitive bidding requirements, and 2, 43% of the 23 highest paid district vendors received over 47% of payments without the district having obtained competitive quotes. My point, the county government is not alone. This is an issue that goes across all levels of county government. It is a big job. It is a heavy lift. To merge the Commissioner of Investigation functions with any other job, be it the county attorney or anyone else, is a tremendous mistake. I am aware, of course, that this county has limited finances and that its moves to create departments and offices are heavily scrutinized. However, the value of an inspector general can in fact be quantified, and not just by the metrics previously espoused in my July report, but further by the annual reports of other jurisdictions' inspector generals. For example, in Washington, D.C., a jurisdiction smaller in population than Nassau County, they created an Office of the Inspector General in 1995. It has since reported out hundreds of millions of dollars of recoveries, restitution orders, and cost savings in its annual reports. In Indiana, the IG, in a 4-year span, cost the taxpayers $4.7 million in operating expenses, while saving and capturing $10.3 million in the same period. New Jersey, $45 million protected from being misspent or recouped in its first 4 years of existence. The list goes on and on. These institutions are meant to be self-funding. The studies exist, and I encourage this body to seek them out. Nassau is more populous than 10 states in the District of Columbia. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, this is the 32nd largest criminal jurisdiction in the country. Accordingly, the notion that we should think like a state or like New York City in protecting from government waste should not be dismissed out of hand. The Inspector General concept is not new. It dates back to 1777. I believe one is needed in Nassau, especially in light of our financial situation and our obvious procurement vulnerabilities across layers of government. I have seen that this body has come to odds regarding the proposal to modify Section 206 of the county charter, replacing or enhancing, depending on one's perspective, the role of the Commissioner of Investigations. I have suggested and suggest again the replacement of this office with the County Inspector General, and have ardently recommended that one essential modification to Section 206 is the manner of confirmation and removal. The current charter section reads as follows: the county executive may, from time to time, appoint, without confirmation by the county legislature, a Commissioner of Investigations, end quote. Though it is a short excerpt, there are two fundamental things that are wrong here. First, the language "from time to time" means that the position is fundamentally impermanent. And two, the lack of any confirmation by the county legislature. The latter concern, I might add, is one of the few exceptions to legislative confirmation of a county department head. Mindful, as I stated before, that no one party will last forever, and thoughtful that both will continue to exist in the foreseeable future, I have recommended a supermajority confirmation, which serves as a stalwart safeguard against a partisan appearance, regardless of the party in power. I am ever mindful that with a recent poll showing devastating mistrust in government, the optics of independence is equally as important as independence itself. I do not mean to cast aspersions at any one party or any one person. That is not my objective. However, a supermajority confirmation will serve as a necessary reminder to the public that its government operations are nonpartisan. The individual who is tasked with inspecting records, cutting waste, streamlining the use of taxpayer dollars, that person must be free of any perceptible allegiance. As outlined in my report, without modern technology to catalog and cross-check, any contract can appear legitimate on its face. Any contract. What we must be looking for in corruption of this process is pre-existing relationships, financial or personal, which go undetected and then are exploited at the expense of fiduciary duty, the taxpayer, and the public's trust as a whole. There has already been an expression of accord several times on the need for better technology in our contracting and procurement systems, and yet there has been insignificant movement. This county, governing 1.4 million people, simply cannot operate its daily business on a paper-based system that would have barely served as adequate in the 1960s. Furthermore, the warehousing of information to be meaningful will require converting to electronic collection and cataloging of public officials' financial disclosure forms in the same contract database. Currently, as you know, these forms are required by general municipal law, are collected mid-year, and reflect the prior year's financial interests. Accordingly, any disclosure is meaningless to the prompt assessment and identification of a current conflict of interest. To be proactive, vendor screenings and official screenings must be side by side. By confronting data with data in real time, you are getting to a more transparent view of the contract in front of you. Still, for any such system to work, there needs to be someone independent watching, the Inspector General. Otherwise, it is akin to a video surveillance system that collects images but is not actually being reviewed. I am not legally permitted to discuss any aspect of an ongoing investigation. I can say, however, that my office, during its process review, uncovered a substantial amount of matters in need of a much greater look, sufficient to keep my office busy with investigations for years to come. Just as the prior scandals took years to develop, I am no less thorough in my work. But prosecution is not a panacea until and unless the systems are in place to protect taxpayer dollars. Scandals will continue to plague our county, and we will continue to prosecute them. As I mentioned before, I look at today as an opportunity for us to collectively embark on crime prevention strategy, not unlike a strategy against human trafficking, heroin, gang violence, or any other category of crime. That it is crime prevention strategy for fraud and corruption, the same principles apply. It must be comprehensive, sustained, and detailed in advance. I sincerely hope and most ardently recommend that you will create and fund a County Inspector General and fast-track the technological upgrades to this county's procurement and contracting systems. You inherited this obscure, outdated, and outmoded process, but you are not bound by it. Break free from the chains of partisanship and look at best practices. Let us act now so we don't pay later. Let us move forward with transparency and independence and regain the public's trust and confidence. I thank you very much for your time.
I just have, if I may,
Thank you. I just thanked her on our behalf of Jamaica, the minority leader.
I just want to thank you, Madam District Attorney, for giving up your time. I know your schedule is very busy. And again, on behalf of the entire legislature, I just want to thank you for your commentary. We have read through your report, and we agree 100% with everything you have had said today, and we continue to work within the confines that we are in to make our system more transparent and more thorough, and one that the people of Nassau County can believe in. But again, I just wanted to thank you for your time, and just to let you know that your report, as well as your commentary today, has not fallen on deaf ears.
Thank you.
Thank you again, DA Singas.
Thank you.